Hello, I'm Greg Allison. I am the chief worm herder at Green Greg's Garden and Worm Farm. Yes, I am a worm farmer and proud of it. And when you see this, you'll understand why. You're going to want to grow worms too, because worms are the future for gardening. And this is my worm farm right here, part of it. SLED bed worm beds. Those are portable. Got many other kinds. I'll show you that in a moment. But guys, the reason to grow worms, one of the best reasons, is to produce a great growing garden. Worms, worm castings, worm tea all make your garden grow like crazy. This is an organic solution, a solution that keeps you from having to go to the store to buy junk to grow your garden because you'll make it yourself, guys. Yes, this is the key right here. These little worms, they're the workaholics that make it all work. They turn waste, they turn your kitchen scraps into great food. And guys, the cool thing is the worm has a beneficial bacteria in its gut that breaks down the nutrients that's in the soil to make it more readily available to the plant roots. And furthermore, the worm produces a castin, that's its poop. And that castin, my friends, dissolves slowly over time, which means it gives a proper release of nutrients over time, and it will not burn your plants up like other manures. So let's go all into this. It makes your plants grow. You can plant your stuff straight up in worm castings. Now, guys, here's what you need to know. Any good book on organic farming will tell you that good soil is living soil. And that'll be the first sentence, the first paragraph in a book on organic gardening. Now, I'm going to tell you what, there's no great bird in nature that has to fly over a forest and spray the forest to make the forest grow. No, that don't happen. And why is that you don't need to spray the forest to make the forest grow? Because the forest already has in the forest floor all the bacteria and the mycelium networks to make this work, because the bacteria break down nutrients to make them more readily available to the plant roots, and the mycelium networks, which are mold that form dendritic networks, actually transport the nutrients to the plants. How about that? It's like nerve cells. Now, the cool thing about it is the plants actually, through their roots, put out sugars to feed the bacteria and the mycelium in the soil. Unfortunately, we have killed most of our soil in the world with our fertilizers. Yes, fertilizers kill bacteria in the soil. Fertilizers, herbicides, pesticides, all these nasty chemicals we use in our soil kills it. And these plants are just wasting the sugars they put in the soil to try to feed it. The nature and the balance in nature isn't there. This isn't there. This isn't there. So this is how we put it back, because worm castings have this stuff. The bacteria from the worm's guts, the bacteria that I inoculate into the soil when I make my worm beds, the mycelium, it's there, my friends. Worm castings are the key to growing a bountiful garden, and so is worm tea. I'll show you that in a minute. This is screen worm castings right here. These are very valuable for your garden. Like I said earlier, you can plant your plants straight up in this and it will not burn them. In fact, that's how I start my plants, in fact. And I built these big raised beds, and the beds are populated with about a third worm castings, a third peat moss, and about a third other compost. Hey, because I got a big worm farm, I can do that at that scale and make a big garden. That's the advantage of having a worm farm. You can scale up how much worm castings you produce. But I also sell worm castings. Guys, here's another reason it's valuable. If the supply chain should break down, if we get into, God forbid, an apocalyptic situation where you can't go to the store to buy your seeds and fertilizers, hey, this little guy will take your garden clippings, your prunings, this stuff, and this stuff, paper trimmings, and food scraps, and manures. Don't use human manure. Make sure it's well composted, any compost, before you put it in your worm beds, and turn it into this great growing food. Yes, you can turn the mess, the trash, and this, and this into, and that into this. That's the key right there, guys. Without going to the store. You don't need a store no more if you got a worm that'll squirm. So, hey, I love this old store. Look at them cedar posts on that porch. Isn't that lovely? That was the day, guys. Hey, we used to have cedar posts on the porch of the house I grew up in when I was a kid. Old houses leveled on rocks. Yeah, that's the way it used to look back in the 20s or 30s. I saw houses like that when I was a kid. But anyway, so much for that. Guys, There's also worm tea. I just mentioned worm casting. The worm casting, like I said, is nature's own little time release pill, invented long before Miracle Grow come up with time release. It came from Mother Nature, from the Lord above, from the very beginning. So, guys, get this: the worm tea is brewed. Now, this is one of my brewing rigs right here. I've got videos where I show brewing it in 5-gallon buckets, and I got videos on my YouTube channels where I show brewing this stuff in a 250-gallon IBC tote. Well, this is a 58-gallon olive barrel. This is what I do most of my brewing in. And I got a bunch of air stones. You can see it's rolling with air bubbles, just a constant boil. Why is that? That's to keep the growth of aerobic oxygen-loving bacteria instead of the stinking anaerobes. Now, all these bubbles are a sign of the metabolic activity going on in here. And I take a big bag of worm castings and actually I use a sandbag as a tea bag to get this started. I lower it down in here and get the brew started. That gets the bacteria cultured in here. Once you get it going, that bacteria will keep reproducing as long as you feed it. And I use molasses to feed it. So the molasses actually makes it a lot more potent in many ways because it's got iron, and some people actually put molasses in their garden. And you can't use chlorinated water in this because the chlorine will kill the bacteria. So you've got to use natural water without the chlorine and all the chemicals in it. I've got well water, and you can let water sit out until the chlorine percolates out, but then you still got the sodium fluoride in it, but not my water. And guess what? Hey, I use aquaponics water in my worm tea. So my worm tea is double strong. Just the water itself will grow your plants. I got really good worm tea. And guys, like I said, this will burn your plants up if you plant it in them. Well, you just don't want to use it when it's fresh like that. Anyway, you want to compost it, my friends, until it goes past the heat phase, because the heat phase has thermophilic bacteria. That's an ugly picture. That produce 180 degrees to kill just about anything. This stuff don't. But this stuff right here, a thimbleful of this has 100,000 different species of beneficial bacteria. And for that reason, worm tea is good to treat molds, mildews, and rust on your plants if you spray it on the leaves. And through the foliar application on the leaves, the worm tea will actually get soaked up. The nutrients will be soaked up by the leaves. And so you're not wasting the nutrients at all. And it will kill some soft-bodied bugs and insects, worms, and deter some of your insects from biting your plants. Probably not a squash stink bug, but many insects it will take care of in that regard. So worm tea is also an all-natural pest repellent and all-natural fertilizer, but it's more than a fertilizer because worm tea, when you put it in the soil, has that beneficial bacteria that break down the nutrients it's already in the soil to make them more readily available to the plant roots. This stuff really makes plants grow, guys. So again, worm castings and worm tea are a key to growing your plants, like I said, and it does not burn them up. So this is some unscreened worm castings and compost, probably mixed up here. But guys, the value of worms. Worm castings have concentrated minerals. It's got the nitrates, the potassium. It's got magnesium, which is highly deficient in our modern diet today, especially if you use some tree products in making your worm castings, like maybe some paper, wood chips, leaf matter, because trees pull those nutrients from deep in the ground, the stuff that's depleted in our gardens and fields today, the stuff that our diet is so lacking in. Magnesium helps hold the potassium in, according to some nurses I talked to. But I know one thing, for me, this is not medical advice. I'm not a doctor. If you need medical advice, go to your doctor. But for me, I found out I was magnesium deficient. I used to have lots of problems with tachycardia, and this has helped me immensely. I'm just telling you what's helped me. Not a prescription for you, but guys, we do have very big deficiencies in our diet in micronutrients, excuse me. So among other things, use some rock dust in your garden, but these worm castings help a lot. Phosphorus. So there's both your macro and micronutrients all mixed together here, guys. Worm castings are 100% organic. They greatly increase your plant yields, protect your plants from diseases, help the soil retain moisture. Now, I also mix in some peat moss when I put these in my soil. And hey, worms are nature's little garden tillers because they aerate the soil as they burrow in and make holes. So it's good to put worms directly in your garden. So you got 3 applications for the worm for your garden. You've got worm castings, worm tea, and worms directly into your garden. Because they'll also make castings and break down the soil to make it more readily available directly to your plant roots. So worms give you triple advantages to your garden, my friends. Now, a worm is more complex than you might think. A worm has a brain, and they have a gizzard. They actually, they got this pharynx they take their food into. They've got a crop and a gizzard. Crop that kind of stores the food in the gizzard. They use, you got to feed worms a little sand, and they grind the food up in the gizzard. I drew this picture myself so I could use it without getting hit with a copyright strike. Yeah, they have sperm ducts and ovaries. Every worm is both female and male. Every worm. They crawl beside each other, and they emit sperms and eggs, and it gets combined outside them into a mucus, and that mucus rolls over the end of the worm into a little golden orb that will have 2 to 7 eggs in it. That's called the that little golden orb is will actually hatch 2 to 7 eggs. So, guys, and this, you can tell a worm is mature because they got this scutellum. That's how you find out. And some people think you can cut a worm in half and get 2 worms of them. That's not true, because the principal organs, the brain and the heart's on one side of the worm. You cannot cut a worm in half and get 2 worms. On this side might survive being cut. I won't say that will or will not, but you cannot get 2 worms with cutting one of these worms. You could do it with flatworms, but you don't want to do that with flatworms, because flatworms, they are good worms. So you don't want flatworms anywhere around your worms. Now, here, I can tell you guys, a worm's got a lot of heart. In fact, a worm has 5 hearts, or these little circular worm vessels here that beat and circulate the blood. Yes, worms have blood, and they have hearts. They have nerves. They have muscles. A worm is, believe it or not, a little complex creature, more complex than you might think. But, hey, they don't complain. They don't gripe. They don't crow. So unlike a lot of livestock, they're very peaceful in your backyard or in your garden. And worms do not eat live plant roots, live plant matter. They only eat dead, decaying matter. So worms are not going to hurt your plants. They're not going to hurt your garden. They are going to benefit your garden greatly. And chickens and fish both like worms too. So if you got more worms you want to do with, hey, you can always feed your chickens, you can always feed your fish. And some people actually raise worms just for those purposes, to feed their chickens and feed their fish. So if you got chickens, you got an aquaponics system, it's a good way to add a little protein to the diet. All right, guys, and back to worm tea. Hey, I sell it in jugs. That's on the hood of my truck, by the way. And people put it in their gardens. Worm tea will grow your gardens like crazy. This garden's been sprayed here with some water. I wouldn't spray it directly on the fruit itself, but I'd spray it on the leaves. Of course, you'd want to wash the fruit maybe with vinegar down if you get it close to them, but that's okay. But, this is the idea. Now, once again, hey, look, you got a great going garden when you use the worm products. And again, what did I say? You don't need a big bird flying over spraying stuff to make it grow, because it's all now in the soil. Good soil is living soil. So I got to ask you, you got worms? Get some. Hey, you go to greengregs.com right there. I'll put the link below and the pin notes and in the chat notes for this video. But more than that, if you go to this website, what you're going to find is not only this link right here. This link is what takes you to buying worms. You can also hit this link up here to buy worms. You go there or there. It takes you to the page where you buy the worms. But guys, you need to go in here and check the vermiculture videos. It's in order, most of everything you need to know to raise your worms, and it's logically organized. There's videos on gardening. It also includes microgreens and aquaponics. And there's a lot of videos in here on wild edibles and medicinals. So you need to watch this kind of stuff, guys. It'll help you in hard times should they fall on us. Yes, and here they are. I do sell worms, and I ship them all over the nation. Again, and this is what you get out of it. So again, go to greengregs.com, guys. You can get your worms now. They are for sale. And this is why you can grow food. Whoa. Briefing went ahead of me. All right, let me go back. You can grow the worms that you need to grow your garden, so you don't have to go to the store. Now, this is some of my worm beds. This is some of my earlier ones. These are barrel hats. These are blue barrels cut in half. I'll do some videos to talk more about these in the near future. And this is actually how the lady I got my worms from grew most of her worms down in South Alabama. It does get a little cold up here on some winters, too cold really for the barrels, but most of the winters are just fine. And even in the coldest winters, when these barrels are frozen solid, I still have half the worms survive. I don't know how they do that. These little guys. But yeah, you can freeze them out if it gets too cold. But for Alabama, even here in North Alabama, 8 miles south of Tennessee. That works. The plywood boxes work great here, and so does my sled beds. Here he is, the magical little guy that does so much work, a little redworm. And here they are, guys, in the compost, working away. And that's some food. We're just some chicken starter. But guys, let me show you. You can make a worm bed out of a disposable box, like you put kitty litter in. This is one kind. Hey, I did a video showing how to make a worm bed out of a kitty litter box, stuff that's free. You might worry, oh, Greg, it costs so much money to build worm beds, blah, blah. Not really. Watch my video on this. I also show how to harvest them quickly with just a screen basket like you get in the office supply store. I'll show you how to build worm beds with totes like this. Now, one of these is a little short tub. You can use full size. I also got another video showing how to build worm beds similar like this, where I went to Walmart and got the totes when I was out in Arizona. I shipped worms to Arizona, and then I flew out there, and then I built beds for those worms. So there's another video on that. This is a stackable worm bed. It's kind of like the worm farms that you see that's stackable, made out of plastic. You can make them out of wood. If you're local, I could sell you. I still got a few of these kits left I could sell you. All right, guys. These are my plywood worm beds. This is my first most reliable worm bed because they're up out of the ground, and I don't have to worry about moles getting in them. And worms grow really good in these, and these have enough thermal mass in them over a cubic yard that I don't have to worry about anything freezing in the winter. Actually, in my area, half that's good enough because my sled bed worm beds have done great in the winter also. So now, if you're further north, you want to use in-ground worm beds. I built some of them too. These are some of my in-ground. This is the earlier versions I built. I've had to go back and redo them because I was in a hurry to build them. I built them plywood sides. They worked for a little while, but eventually plywood rotted, moles got in and ate all my worms. So I went to this, my hopefully mold-proof beds, but you still have to keep an eye on them. That's my greenhouse in the background there. So I will do more videos on these in the future. These are more of, that's my original tube. I converted these two beds into these two beds, and then I built more of them back in here. So these all have worms in them today. So we got worms, guys. These mostly have worms too. These have worms. These have worms. So I've got several kind of worm beds I built and developed, experimented with, and I'll bring you knowledge on more of this stuff in the future. I do have videos on this, and I will do more. So do subscribe to my channel, bang the notification bell, and click all to get more videos on this stuff. These are the plywood boxes. You see they got air holes and they got water drain holes too, and they're slanted for the water to drain down one end. And no, I don't put rocks and other stuff in the bottom like some YouTube channels show to do for tubs. I'm going to do a bathtub worm bed. I'm going to do some freezer and refrigerator worm beds. I'm going to do all this stuff to show you different ways to grow worms. That's coming soon. I got all the stuff. I put I take staples and staple screen wire over these holes so the worms don't get out. And those are the big staples. I have used just regular office staples. It works too, guys. But guys, yeah, what we don't want to see is what happens when the store shelves go bare. So yeah, guys, when the shelves are bare and the prices soar, your garden will bear more and more. That's the key thing with growing worms. So you don't have to go to the store. And by the way, if you're out in the desert and see that store and it says it's 300 miles desert ahead, you might want to stop. So there you go. One more time. When the shelves are bare and the prices soar, your garden will bear more and more, so you don't have to go to the store. Even in good times, that's a good thing to know. You don't have to have the grid breaking down. You don't have to have the supply chains breaking down. It's good to be self-sufficient even in good times, but it's good to also know that you're prepared for the worst of times. It gives you that little assurance in the back of your mind when everybody else is scared. You're going, okay, I got this covered. So guys, also, you know, if you're gardens, you want to buy seeds, man, check it out. I got the link below for this too. This is my link. I'm an affiliate marketer with True Leaf Market. You won't pay 1 cent more to click my link than you would go in their store, but I get a tiny commission if you'll do some purchases through my link to True Leaf Market. So that here you get the heirloom seeds, non-GMO seeds, and you want these heirloom seeds because that's the kind you can plant and save the seeds and get the same kind of plant back the following year. So guys, one more time, got worms? Get you some. There you go. And again, one more time, talking about my videos, guys. This is when you go into the vermiculture videos, it starts out with the basics, like, 5 keys for raising worms, building the beds, and it goes to more and more complex stuff. Basically covers the entire gamut of what you need to know. Gardening videos, and my gardening videos start out talking about what you put in a garden bed, how to prepare the garden bed. And a lot of people don't do that in a lot of gardening videos, but if you're going to grow organically and not go to the store, that's the most important thing to know. So that's why I spend time on that. I'm talking about, I'm showing you putting the castings in and the compost and the peat moss and stirring it up and how I prepare my beds. Guys, this is critical. And I got the wild edibles. Did you know you can eat maple seeds? What's the #1 wild edible in America? Eat the weed that eats America. It's plentiful. There's my channel, Green Greg's. Also cover prepping topics, what's going on in the world. And, it's our world's got a lot of challenges for us at the moment, guys. But once again, just don't forget, come here to Green Greg's website, greengregs.com, and you get a better order of the videos than you might see back here in the subject areas of worms and gardens. Because here I got so many videos on my channel, a lot more than I had even then. It's something else. But you come in here and you can find the videos that you really want to see. Anyway, got my friends, and I do a lot of other stuff. I grow microgreens. I got videos on that, and so you can check that out and some other things, guys. So I'll talk more about that in the future. Anyway, well, here I am, and I'm gonna say, grow your own, but worms are the key. Worms are the key to having a great garden, and worms are also a strong potential for a prepping business. I'm going to cover that in the future video. Why worms make a great prepping business should the what hits the fan, but they're a good little side gig anyway. More on that in the future. So my friends, with that, I'm going to say thank you very much for watching. Take care, and always remember to be prepared, not scared. And in the worst of times, having worms is going to give you that little, I got this covered. So get it covered. Got worms, get worms. Thank you for watching. Goodbye. Greg out.